When does a mod become a masterpiece? When looking at Age of Empires 2, our primary case study is that of the Forgotten Expansion. This ambitious fan project, innovative for its time and almost universally well received, would go on to redefine the game and lift it out of its proverbial dark age, serving as the basis for its future development, with its team going on to helm Age of Empires for years thereafter, even to this very day. But it's easy to forget that Forgotten Empires was not alone. In the fertile primordial seas of AOK Heaven way back in the days, dozens of fantastic mods took root and flourished. Many beloved, many iconic, and a few even rising to rival the Forgotten as masterpieces. But one of these mods in particular stands out. Dormant since the CD days and only still played by a handful of devoted players who have managed to mod HD to be compatible with it, this lost masterpiece was largely created by one very passionate and talented fan who taught himself modding over the course of the project and whose story is largely untold on YouTube. While the few of you who have been in the AoE2 modding scene for quite a while will have doubtlessly heard of this mod, there are many modern fans to whom it will be completely new. And as such, it is my honor today to tell you all about the Portuguese Civilization mod, the lost masterpiece of Age of Empires 2. Now, before we begin the video, I must pause to emphasize that, tragically, this mod is not compatible with DE. It technically isn't even compatible with HD unless you use a fan-made adaptation tool like the one you see on screen right now, linked in the description if you want to check that out. I do not know how to do it. I wish I did, but unfortunately, it means that this video is going to be focused on documenting this amazing mod's history. And oh, what a history it is.
Hello everyone, I am Daniel Pereira. I developed the Portuguese Civ mod and its installments for the original AOE2. Portuguese Civ mod wasn't my first large-scale modding project, but it was the first one to be actually successful.
In just his second ever outing as a modder, Daniel would break the mold, and his inspiration would come from a familiar face. If you want to see my full interview with Daniel, by the way, take a look down in the description. It was a really great conversation, and he got to go into far more detail there than we will be able to go in this video now.
Back at 2011 or so, I was actually planning to make a mod myself, a total conversion, but it ended up not being very successful. I didn't have all the knowledge back then. And right at that time, there was some talks about a new mod that was capable of actually adding new civilizations, which wasn't possible back then, which was simply the Forgotten Empires mod by Cision. And that piqued my curiosity. First thing I did was messaging him in AOC Zone back then, and I asked him how he had managed to actually add a new civilization. And then I saw the civ lists in his post there, and I asked him if he could add a Portuguese civilization.
It's often forgotten that one of Cision's earliest claims to fame and competitive advantages over other mods was that he actually broke the civilization barrier way back in CD days. In modern Age of Empires 2 theory crafting discourse, we often hear people discussing the quote-unquote 50 civ barrier as though it's some insurmountable obstacle, but Cision broke a very similar barrier way back in the day.
I'm actually Brazilian. A few people in the past thought I was Portuguese, but I'm actually Brazilian. But I also have some, how could I put, some attraction to Portuguese history, since it is deeply intertwined with my own country's history. So I asked him if he could add the Portuguese civilization, but yeah, all of the civs were already taken, and there was a spot for one more.
And yet the idea of a Portuguese civilization was not so quickly dispelled from Daniel's mind. And so, undaunted, he started considering some other options.
As time went on, I decided to actually attempt to expand the Forgotten Empires mod to create my own Portuguese civilization.
And when that didn't work?
I actually tried to mod the original The Conquerors directly without using The Forgotten as a base. So yeah, that's basically how it began.
Who knows what was going through Daniel's mind in those very early days of development? Did he even have the slightest inklings of the ambitious heights that his mod would reach in just a couple short years? I forgot to ask, and maybe he doesn't even remember. But regardless, things would only escalate from here.
Hello there, Wololo Warriors. It is my pleasure to bring to you today a video about an upcoming release of an expansion for Age of Empires 2. It is called the Portuguese Civ mod.
If that voice was as nostalgic to you as it was to me, then congratulations, you are officially an old fart. Welcome to the club. It's good to have you here. That was, of course, the ineffable ZeroEmpires. AOE2's most legendary content creator, who saw the game through its dark ages on Voobly and was its champion for many years during and beyond. And the footage you see on screen right now is actually his official review of version 2 of the Portuguese Civilization mod. He of course does a great job, so take a look down in the description if you want a link to see the full video. Zach, if you're watching, we love you very much. I'm not about to beg for you to come back, because I'm sure you've moved on to other great things in your life, but just know that we are all immensely fond of you and are grateful for your contribution to this game. But let's get back to Daniel. Rather than just copying Zero's footage to see what the PCM actually added to the game, let's hear it in Daniel's own words.
A lot other mods, not all of them successful, started popping up in the community, all of them trying to add new civilizations, new game mechanics, and in that context I started thinking about expanding the core game mechanics. I tried to restore the mechanic for building sea buildings that we see on some of the Conquerors campaigns, when you have sea walls, sea gates, and so on and so forth. Start to bring that to the game.
However, it would turn out that the humble seawall would be a bit of a gateway drug for Daniel, and as he got more involved in the community, other mechanics would be added.
I got involved in some other projects from other modders and carried their suggestions to my own mod, like for example the mechanic for support units. Every civilization having their own support unit was a suggestion from another modder, trainable heroes of civilizations, and so on and so forth.
From there, Daniel started to get ideas from other games that he loved.
I was a huge Rise of Nations fan. The World Empire mechanic was actually somehow inspired in the Wonder Power mechanic we see on Rise of Nations.
Yes.
And also the extended scout mechanic. They have some sort of abilities.
And at this point, the floodgates burst open. Let's hear a brief rundown from Daniel himself about all the different mechanics he ended up adding.
Okay, let me just look into my own mods page, because sometimes I forget the exact numbers. There is a new resource experience. There is a mercenary system where each civilization, according to their culture, they have access to mercenaries at a new building called the Tavern. 5th Age, the Renaissance Age. Real-world maps have rare resources that grant bonuses and generate resources every second. Nomad civilizations, they also have a mechanic where they can actually pack some of their main buildings, and from the packed buildings you can train raider units from these packed buildings. Back then I only had basic data modding, and we didn't have all these fancy tools we have today.
Holy hell. This is the sort of thing that a game design maximalist like me dreams of at night. And the fact that he did all of this without any of the so-called fancy tools that are now available to modders is utterly mind-boggling. But we haven't even touched upon the crown jewel of the mod, the civilizations.
We have in total 18 new civilizations.
18 whole civilizations, each like 2 times more complicated than any official one in-game, with a bunch of added mechanics, more unique units, new bonuses. It's just glorious. And I know that you want to see a rundown of these civilizations, so let me see if I can give you a quick summary. Okay. The Portuguese. Explore the map, sail the high seas, and hope your enemies don't murder you until you can get access to your gunpowder, at which point blow their heads off. Aragonese. You got skirmishers who are very, 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 very strong. They are terrifying. You can murder pretty much everything with them. They do other stuff too. Build random units. It'll probably work. But remember, you don't have an eco bonus, so just rush them and hope they die. Moors. You have better cavalry. You also have better economy. Your economy is actually quite good. And did I mention you have cavalry and monks? Monks, very good. You have imams. Go convert them. Berbers. Camels. Camels with lots of armor. Still get murdered by towers though because it's HD, but your villagers are faster and you are good at raiding like the piece of shit you are. Navarrese. You have long-range spearmen. That's pretty exciting. Your villagers have a blanket work rate bonus. That looks extremely powerful. You also have a disgustingly powerful unique technology that is both an eco bonus and a military bonus at the same time. Make use of it. Two-piece. Your villagers cost wood, your archers move faster and have a bonus against technology, and you also have houses that can shoot people. You are one of the best rushing civilizations in the game. Act accordingly. Dutch. Sail the high seas, get lots of gold. Shoot people with guns when you eventually get guns, but in the meantime focus on gold. Swahilis. You start with fewer villagers. Ow, that really hurts, but aging up costs no gold. Yay, that's really good. You are able to also sail the high seas and do lots of trading. Are you sensing a theme yet? But for the most part, shoot people with ships, scorpions, and other things that can shoot. Italians. You use engineers to make most of your buildings. Your economic upgrades are dramatically cheaper. You are able to chop people with mercenaries very, very effectively. And also you can sail the high seas. We love sailing the high seas. Indians. You cannot gather from heritables, but instead you garrison them in mills. Does that sound familiar? Your villagers cost less food. Does that sound familiar? Aging up costs wood instead of food. Oh wait, that's not familiar. Your camels are also faster. You can shoot people with guns, and you can even convert castles with monks. Quite fun. Galicians. Your villagers are quite tanky. Your foragers work faster. Your infantry is quite tanky. Your knights are unconvertible and chop everyone as they die. They are very, very scary. Indonesians. You are an asshole. Nerf enemy units rather than buffing your own. Sail the high seas. Trade, trade, trade. Lots of fun. Shoot them with cannons. Leonese. Your enemy's monks are more expensive, and your monasteries have various benefits. Your unique unit can critical strike. That sounds pretty fun. Abyssinians. You get a constant gold trickle. That is good. You have a unique technology that lets infantry be trained in blocks. That is very good. Your unique unit is also able to occasionally dodge enemy attacks. Sound familiar? Interesting. Next, Shona. Your farmers work much faster. You train all of your units in mixed squads. Your infantry takes less damage from ranged units, and you have an insane man-at-arms rush. Act accordingly. Burgundians. Your food lasts longer. Your cavalry is better. You also are good with mercenaries. You have a unique unit that is an organ gun. Proceed accordingly and shoot people to pieces. Congolese. Your archers have more HP. They also train faster, and you can get your unique unit automatically for free at your castle after your unique technology. Make lots of archers, shoot them to pieces. And lastly, the Polish. You get to build more town centers from feudal age. No limit, no restrictions, make more town centers. You have winged hussars, which you get whenever you build a town center. Winged hussars are fast and have powerful area effect damage. Sound familiar? Make lots of those and stomp on everyone. Okay. Oh, jeez. As you might imagine, this is a very surface level summary of all these civilizations. The best way you can learn more about them is by playing the Oh yeah, you can't really play the mod. Okay, download that patch, try to play the mod, and if you do, let me know which civilizations are the most overpowered. All of these seem absolutely disgustingly busted, but I want to hear from you guys. Let me know down in the comment section.
I wanted to push the boundaries of the game design, of the game engine, as much as I could. So that was basically my core objectives with the later iterations of my mod. Despite a few choices that I do regret on the design of a few civilizations, my mod is pretty much complete. I achieved everything that I wanted to achieve, and I don't see anything that I would want to add.
It's almost impossible to say when a creative project is truly complete. There will always be other things that you wish you had included, elements that you wish you could have perfected, and on top of everything, it is often just hard to say goodbye. But Daniel left an impressive legacy with the Portuguese Civ mod, with V2 alone being downloaded over 3,600 times on AOK Heaven alone. And he got more out of this mod than just bragging rights. This project, and modding in general, ended up being a great platform for him to develop his skills and even step into a new career.
Currently I am part of Forgotten Empires, but I'm not involved with AUA2. I'm not involved. I did some work on AUA3, DE, and currently I am working on Age of Mythology, but I'm not working on AUA2, so I'm still involved with the franchise. Sometimes I do play AUA2, but just in single player on my free time. I don't get involved in modding anymore. I do look back at that time and in a sort of nostalgic way. One way or another, those were simpler times. It helped me to grow the skills that I needed later in life.
Daniel also had some other really interesting insights about what modding teaches you as a person. So if you're at all interested in modding or just want to hear his insights, I would once again highly recommend you check out our full-length interview linked in the description down below. But of course, Daniel is also being very humble here. There are plenty of other enormous accolades. For example, the pretty substantial list of things that he predicted being added to the game well before they were added. You could argue that some of these were pretty obviously going to be added, but even so, there are more than a couple that I would say are uncannily accurate, that he got in on years before the official game did. What isn't arguable is that the Portuguese Civilization mod exceeds the ambition and scope of Forgotten by many orders of magnitude. In fact, it's really only rivaled by one or two other total overhaul mods in the history of Age of Empires 2, one of which Daniel himself said he drew enormous inspiration from.
A few years ago, when I was far younger, the idea of modding a game was outlandish to me until I found out about the Age of Chivalry mod for UA2. I would say that's actually a legendary mod. It's definitely one of the greatest mods ever done for UA2. And it was made by Corbotch from Age of Kings 7, who is no longer a modder. Pretty much converted the entire game into a more realistic medieval-ish setting. When I first saw that mod, since then ideas started popping into my mind. I think, oh, I need to make my own mod at some point.
But all that being said, I would like to leave you with one final thought. What if Age of Empires 2 had taken up the Portuguese Civilization mod rather than the Forgotten as its pole star? What if the Portuguese Civilization mod had set the tone for the game's renaissance and led to a definitive edition where all civilizations had wonder bonuses? The Tupis were added before the Magyars, heroes were trainable from castles, mercenaries hireable from taverns, and an entire 5th age elevated the game's depth, time frame, and replayability. Would the competitive scene have stuck around and adjusted to it? Or would this level of complexity simply been too unpalatable for them? Would it have sparked the same mass return of nostalgic casuals excited to re-experience the campaigns they grew up in? Or was it just too different? I'd like to hear your thoughts down in the comments section. But for now, I'd like to turn it over to Daniel one more time to sign us out.
So I'd just like to thank you for the opportunity. I always wanted to have an opportunity to share a bit about my mod, the process that led it to be created, and I'm grateful for the opportunity you have granted me.
And as always, my name is Robbie Howell. Tremendous thanks to Daniel Pereira for taking the time to be interviewed and discuss his story with me. And ciao for now.